Join me if you can understand what this is. Ho, 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 ho. All of us have lived with the song. Sandesh aate hain, hum hi tadpaate hain. So, good, bad, ugly, war films, can we ignore them? No, you can't. We live on them and we thrive on them. So thank you so much for this wonderful panel. And the author of this incredibly wonderful book, Ramesh. Thank you so much for this, KB Ramesh. I'll start this afternoon now, with just one point about growing up in the armed forces, then marrying somebody from the armed forces, a son from the armed forces. And then I realized over the years how it builds into you, you know. Why I bring this up is because I've known two of these. I was reading about both these actors, about both these incredible women. They've played these characters that they have over time and again, which clearly means that Indira Gandhi is now Avantika and Sonia Gandhi is now Susan. So I'll start my first question with how the wars over the year and the films that you've played. I'll go with Avantika first. How has this impacted you as a person when you were preparing for Indira Gandhi and the history that you went into it?
I am not Indira Gandhi. Please, I never want to be her. I don't think anybody can be her. But thank you so much. First of all, I am an actor, but I am a human being first, and listening to these extraordinary stories on the panel before, boy, this is a tough act to follow. But here's an interesting thing. So I am a mixed breed. I am half and half, and maybe because of that other half, I happen to have a nose that worked in my favor when I played Indira Gandhi. Luckily for the makeup team and the hairstylist team, they have to really do nothing, maybe just a wig, but no prosthetics, etc. So the first time when I just arrived from America, I had been living in the States for many years, and so you may detect still a slight accent, maaf kijiye. But I know that when I play her, it definitely doesn't sound like a foreigner playing her. But when I first arrived, I remember a gentleman coming up to me and saying, "You don't know who I am, but you are going to be my Indira Gandhi." And that came as a huge shock because I was in college when she got assassinated. Okay. And although growing up, I wasn't very involved with what was happening politically at home, her presence on the scene internationally, locally, and my life indirectly, because in many ways, she represents somebody that I've always admired, a very strong woman. My mother is a very strong woman. My grandmothers were very strong women. So when he said, "I've met my Indira Gandhi," I said, "You've got to be joking. I look nothing like her." And it kind of progressed from that. And the first time that I played her was in Thakare, and Sanjay Raut's team reached out to me, and they said, because of my last name being Maharashtrian, they said, "Tai ami Marathi मध्ये बोलू शकतात." And of course, I didn't grow up speaking Marathi, but I said, "Ho." He said, "We have a film that we'd like you to be a part of. Would you come and talk to us?" And I said, "Yes, of course." I mean, I'm always happy to work in films. And when he came out and he said, "Look, actually, we need you to play Indira Gandhi." And I went, "No, you've got to be kidding me. This is the second time that this has happened. So there must be some truth to the way I look." And he said, "Not only that, but you're going to be playing it in a film called Bala Saheb." And I went, "Bala Saheb Thackeray?" And now that name evokes so much. And I went, no, I don't think I can do this. But anyway, the long and the short of it, and I'm rambling, but the long and the short of it is when you play somebody as iconic and as inspirational for me, and as sort of legendary as this extraordinary woman, very flawed, but extraordinary woman nevertheless, you can't caricaturize her.
Yeah.
You can't mimic her. You can't copy her. The only thing you can do is do a lot of research. And that's what I did. I read books on her. I watched her interviews, the most famous one being with the BBC. And I thought she was spectacular, just totally sidelined the questions. And then I basically listened to her voice and I would practice at home a little bit. And the rest, I guess, was up to
It was
me.
on screen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and if I did my job correctly, and I believe I have, then I guess I wouldn't have played her 6 times. But Nandini, thank you.
Yeah.
Nandini Raman writes this wonderful piece in the Mint about when she interviewed me. She asked me the very same question, and she said, "What did you do to personify her?"
Yeah.
And she said, "I don't know." I said to her, "I don't know, but when that wig goes on, something happens." And so maybe Suzanne can speak a little bit more about that.
So we'll ask the daughter-in-law now.
Daughter-in-law.
Suzanne, you had a very actually both of you came into acting very luck by chance.
Luck by chance.
You
No,
Bilkul.
no, not at all.
You
From
were
my childhood onwards. No, I studied acting for 3 years in Berlin. I'm a trained theater artist, so no, I didn't come in by chance.
But Dubai happened by chance. When
Yeah, no, India happened by chance.
India
Lekin
happened
I
by
always say ye
chance.
kismat wali baat hai. Main kya karu?
That's the Hindi, guys. I think hats off to the Hindi, and it's incredible. Actually, मैं आपसे ये हिंदी में ही पूछती हूँ. सोनिया गांधी के लिए प्रिपेयर करना. I think I'm sure you look the part as well.
2 घंटे लगेगी.
2 घंटे लगेंगे. थोड़ा सा जो मैं आपसे पूछना चाह रही थी is that when you prepared for Sonia, आपको उनमें और अपनी लाइफ में similarities कुछ नजर आई when you prepared for Sonia? Did you feel the character was somewhat close to who you are, or the feeling of coming to another country?
नहीं, sorry. ये एक्चुअली बहुत मुश्किल सवाल है क्योंकि हाँ ठीक है मैं बाहर की हूँ और हाँ ठीक है मैं फिरंगी बहू भी बन गई ऑन स्क्रीन ऑफ स्क्रीन रियल में लेकिन तो अलग कहानी है कि नॉर्मल लाइफ में पहुंचूंगी या पॉलिटिकल स्टेज पर.
हाँ, did you feel some similarities between
नहीं
her
नहीं
real life
नहीं
and
she had a tough stance ना शुरुआत से यह भारत के सारे नजर उनके ऊपर थे ना तो I don't think that I was not so visible. शुरुआत में इतना visibility नहीं था मेरी तो I don't think so, and she's very different. I think. From
Yeah, you're very different. Okay.
I'm too bubbly.
Ooh, okay.
I jump, I bubble, I talk a lot. I love people. I love to talk to people. You meet me at the airport, I start babbling with you. So I don't know.
So that's lovely.
So
I would definitely love to bump into you at the airport then. That makes the two of us. Susan, coming from Germany and then Dubai and then Indian films happened to you, and you found a whole lot of love and appreciation in the country. I'll go to the war film because this is in the recent time when 26/11 happened, and you've acted in this in the series which was on 26/11. Did it particularly give you a different sense of responsibility because this has happened in real time in front of most of us, and we've seen it televised on the screen? How was it to prepare for Sage?
It was actually I was not supposed to play this character. I fought for this part. I wanted to desperately be a part of a State of Siege 26/11, and I wanted to play one of the Jewish hostages, Yocheved Orpas. So I really, really, I had a high stake in this. I really wanted to play her, and I really wanted to do a good job at it. I was living in Mumbai in 26/11, and I was 2 days prior at the Trident Hotel. And to this day, these memories. So
That's okay. That's okay. Take your time.
I think you all went through a very big trauma.
Yeah.
The whole country was looking at this and thinking this can't be real. And then this book came. by Sandeep. And Contilu Production House then came around and said, we want to do a story on this. And to my knowledge, I hope I'm right here, is that this is the first time that Nariman Point House, Chabad House, was also shown. Neither in any of the other movies the Jewish hostages were even mentioned. So I found this very, very important because it needed to be shown that beside the Taj and the Trident and the tragedies, that small community that lives here in India, that loves the country. I don't know if anybody knows here that a lot of Jews are still living here. And I'm very happy that Kobe is here. He's the Consul General of Israel.
Yes.
So I'm very delighted that you have come for this. And you know more about how many Jews are living here and how many have come and made India their home. So I found it very, very important at that moment that story will also be told, because these people were living here and peacefully living here, and they were attacked at the same time with everybody else. Yeah. So I don't know what just happened. I think I just had a flashback to the shooting, because we were shooting every night on Mud Island. People who are from Mumbai know where that is. So there are a lot of like bungalows, and it's very green and it's very beautiful, and we shot there. And shooting at night is a different kind of a stress on the body and on the psyche. And my colleague Sabrine Baker, who played Rivka Hotzberg, she was also, we became friends through the shoot. And everybody who was shooting these scenes was highly affected. The actors who had to play the terrorists, I feel so for them. They had such a hard time to be that evil and that harsh and that horrible. It took a toll more on the people who had to play the bad guys in this. No? Usually I say playing a baddie on screen is mostly entertaining. No, I was Queen Helena Ashok, so I enjoyed that. But besides that, in this case, it was all the flashbacks to the real event came back to me. The footage on the TV came back to me. How eerily silent Mumbai was. I was living in Andheri at that time. How people were not on the street, and when everything was over, there was one big gasp of breath. People were starting to breathe again, and then they started moving again and going to their work and going through their whatever they needed to do. And I think that is showing the strengths of Mumbai and through this terror attack. And the shooting was tough. I can't tell you. I had constantly a racing pulse, and then having to speak in Hebrew as well, and then having all these scenes where you're being dragged on the floor and you're being kicked, and in the end you're being shot. I think this was one of the most traumatic experiences that I ever had. But and then and playing somebody who was alive, who was a grandmother, who was a mother, who had just come to that place to say thank you for the hospitality. She had just come to thank you. In that moment, she was in the wrong place at the wrong time. And it was heartbreaking to see that. And I think they did it very well in the show, because they showed the human side. They showed interactions between the hostages. And that made it even more hard-hitting, I think. Because if you just show it, it's happening. But if you have, like, people are talking and they don't know if they will ever get out of this, I think that's
Thank you for sharing that part, and you've shared it very beautifully, because it's the struggle of an actor. It's very important to know what an actor goes through when you play these roles, because you prepare so deeply. And war films or people you play, it becomes very deeply, I think, also draining on you. Ramesh, I'm going to ask you this question. So I remember Prabal and I were having a conversation about Camouflage. It's one of my most favorite books, and stories interest me. And we were talking about how India's had, and as he mentioned, 100 years of glorious military past. And then I read this interesting line in your book, and I'll quote that, where you have said, and I've underlined it now, so this book doesn't come back to you. So he says, in this conversation with his friends, 50 Indian war movies, you won't even find 15. That probably was the most insightful comment that I heard from many people with whom I shared the subject of my third book. Most of them told me sardonically, tell me when the book is finished. Another said, if you find 50, then, so there was a shrug there. So I wanted to ask you, you then decided ki chalo 50 Indian Hindi, not from me and line Bollywood, let me cover 50 from all languages of the country.
Correct.
In 100 years, we've barely managed, or you could actually just about manage to get 50.
Absolutely.
Now, this is where we come to the good, bad, and the ugly of the war films. You've researched them very well.
Absolutely.
How was
Thank you for
this
that.
feeling of not even finding 50?
See, I think a lot is to. This is my view, and I'm sure people may agree, may disagree. I think in general, generally there is not much interest for war films as a genre per se in India, and this I've seen across the languages. War is something which happens somewhere in the northern part of the country, and the rest of India is not too worried about that. And also, generally, there is this feeling that, "Theek hai yaar, I mean, the armed forces are fighting." And it's history. Most people that I have spoken to are people are like, "Hey, why are you spending so much of time on this military history? Yaar? You must be are you a military nut or something?" I said, "No, I'm not a military nut. I'm a military nerd. I'm interested in the topic, and as a nation which has been involved in modern warfare from, say, the First World War till date,
Yeah.
I think we had done a great disservice into showing the stories.
Yeah.
Now, this is where again the trouble begins. Trouble begins, at least for me, and I highlighted that in the book many a time. Sometimes sarcastically, sometimes humorously. I think humorously is that there is a balance. There should be a balance between the actual hard history and telling the history in a manner in which the man on the street is able to understand it. Like, I think Sher Shah, sorry, not Shahenshah, Sher Shah did a wonderful job of that. Okay,
As Lieutenant General,
I still
Vaidya
feel
said,
that
yeah.
this part of it, the romance part of it, was stretched out a little too long. Like I said, I'm a military nerd. Yeah. So I'm a military nerd. So I was interested in the hard history part of it, but that was done very well. As Sir had just said that he was involved as a consultant.
Yeah.
So and I was watching very closely. The weapons were accurate, the uniforms were accurate. Some of the actions, the commands, silent commands, that was done properly. So I think probably we can say that that's a kind of turning point in terms of presenting authenticity in films and tell a story in a way in which it is liked by the audience. And this 100 years, I think, like the indifference, probably, I mean, this is my take, that the former indifference which was there to our own history, be it in writing or on films, especially on films, is somewhat changing. I'm not saying it is changing totally. It's somewhat changing. I think this recent film, Amaran, is a very good example. It is told it's a hard story of a person a major who died fighting terrorists in Jammu and Kashmir. And it is told in a very authentic, matter-of-fact way. And the fact that his wife is telling the entire story as a flashback also works very well, because now, right from the beginning, a woman is part of the story. So it's a love story. It is their love story and the obstacles which they faced in overcoming. Her parents don't want her to marry Major Mukund. Ultimately, he died as Major Mukund, but they don't want him to marry Mukund. And he joins the army and is promoted and things like that. Now, this is very straightforward. Now, compare this with the traditional way in which films presented. There is a triangle, and the army or the air force, or the not much of the navy, the armed forces is the third angle of the triangle. Their only job is to bump off one of the heroes, so that there is a problem. And Sangam is the best example. Sangam is considered to be a classic. I don't think so. A lot of people, I mean, will not like what I say, but Sangam is a classic. But it takes 3.5 hours to come to that conclusion. Come on, give me a break. I can't stand that much of torture on screen. the story should have been over after about 1.5 hours or so. The Sangam, I made a mention of it in the book. I mentioned as honorable mention.
That's very sweet.
It is only for, there is this mass takeoff of Canberra bombers from Lohegam Air Force Base in Pune, and that's a wonderful shot. I don't think it has ever been equated even in a foreign film. So Sangam is mentioned. Otherwise, it's just it's a typical love triangle.
You're
Now-
clearly not in love with the love triangle.
Yeah,
You're
yeah,
very
yeah.
upset.
No, I am not. Then there is another film called Lalkar. Now, I was, Lalkar was released in 1972. I was in school at that time. And it was a hit. And I had not seen the movie. I saw the movie for the book. And I was stunned because it's probably the 4 or 5 films which shows the Indian armed forces on the British side fighting against the Japanese. Very few films mention that. I think it's kind of very sad that because the Indian contribution, as it was already mentioned, was 2.5 million volunteers. So it's volunteers, not compulsory service. But unfortunately, this never finds mention. I can count right now the films Usne Kaha Tha, Hum Dono, Lalkar, and then there is this movie called Kanche, which is mentioned in the book. It's a Telugu film. Kanche means walls. Great story, but in execution, it's really very sad. Again, it's a love triangle. Okay,
I don't know
now
if you
to
choose them or
compound
they
it
choose you
further,
now.
to compound the love triangle further, the woman is from a high caste, the hero, quote unquote hero, is from a low caste, and the third man in the angle is the heroine's elder brother.
Oh.
And the elder brother and the low caste hero, they fight, they go to Italy during Second World War.
So now we'll have to watch this film to
Please
dive
do.
further
When
into it.
I watched it, I watched the DVD. There was no subtitles, but now it is dubbed and available in YouTube.
Oh, lovely.
No, it's not that lovely as you think. Don't jump the gun. Don't jump the gun, because if what I'm about to tell you, you'll be astounded by that. Okay, it's set in Second World War. The Italian campaign, yes, there's a lot of Indians who fought over there. So the first title, it starts like Italy 1943. I said, okay, good. Royal Indian Army. I said, Royal Indian Army, where did that come from? There is a Royal Indian Air Force, but Royal Indian Army, where did that come from? And then the hero is introduced with a great background music and so on and so forth. I said, what is this uniform? This uniform is not correct. Long story short, for the audience and everybody else, the story is set in Italy during Second World War, but the film was shot in Georgia. So which means that some leftover uniforms from some Second World War film were used by the cast. So the equipment, the machine guns are PPS, what is popularly known in Second World War as a Pepesha. So it's a Pepesha submachine guns. The rifle is the Mosin Nagant. I did all the research on that. And then the tanks which are shown, wonderful. It is T-72s.
Please elaborate.
Okay, T-72s, we all know it was introduced in the year 1972. The German uniforms and the German equipment was accurate, but these are supposedly the Indian army is using all these equipment. I said, oh my God. And then over and above that, you have the masala. Now coming back to Lalkar, it's not a love triangle. It's a love quadrangle. So Kumkum, she is a tribal princess. She loves Dharmendra, who loves Mala Sinha, who in turn loves Rajendra Kumar.
Oh God.
So now you imagine how much complications we can introduce. The World War II is something just happens incidentally in the background.
I can imagine the amount of research you've done for this.
I was laughing out aloud when I was watching Lalkar. But Lalkar, to be fair, the first 10 minutes of the film was good. and then it was a downhill journey. The why? Because I think one of the most, shall we say, upright reasons why 2.5 million Indians joined, and it's Indians. Huh? I mean, so because across India, North India, South India, not the so-called martial races and so on, across India, people joined, and Dharmendra is the younger brother, Rajendra Kumar is the older brother. Rajendra Kumar is in the Royal Indian Air Force. It did not get a royal title till 1946. So we are talking of 1943 or 44. Rajendra Kumar and Dharmendra is a major in the army. They are from an army family. The father is a retired colonel. So they come down for breakfast and the father chides Dharmendra, ये इतने लेट क्यों आए हो, इतना झूठ क्यों बोलते हो? So धर्मेंद्र says, नहीं, मैं अंग्रेज सरकार के लिए काम करता हूँ, ये झूठी सरकार है, तो जिस दिन अंग्रेज सरकार नहीं रहेगी तो झूठ बोलना बंद. हाँ, झूठ बोल. That's Dharmendra. He can get away with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the father says, no. We are soldiers. We should not discuss politics. No politics at the breakfast table. So Rajendra Kumar's dialogue is very authentic. So Rajendra Kumar says, हम अंग्रेज के लिए नहीं लड़ रहे हैं, हम अपनी मुल्क के लिए लड़ रहे हैं जो जापानियों के हमले के मतलब सामने है. So every Indian today is fighting for India against the Japanese, and I think that's a very logical. And I did more research on that. Prem Bhagat was a Victoria Cross winner in Second World War. Now Prem Bhagat went and asked no less a person than Mahatma Gandhi, look, I'm an Indian first and last, and I have this feeling that what I'm doing is wrong, that I'm fighting on the side of the British. So Gandhi told Prem Bhagat that, you, no matter what you do, first and last, you will remain an Indian. Yeah. Number one. Number two, independence is around the corner. We may not know when we will get it, but independence is around the corner, and a independent India will require a professional army. So it is better that you get experience in command and control of soldiers, and that is why. And even there is one more soldier, I forget his name, he was also told the same thing. So it's not something that the Indians volunteered. They had a reason. They were clear that with independence round the corner is definitely we will form the core of whatever form independent Indian armed forces will take.
Ramesh, I can actually say you're not just an army buff, you're also a film buff. You're also a nerd.
Absolutely.
And you have thoroughly...
I'm proud to be a nerd.
Very proud, as you should be, because this is incredibly in-depth. I'm going to go to Avantika and I'm going to ask her that growing up on a fodder of not so many Fauji films, clearly we have a dearth of them, which were ones that you can actually remember and that have stayed with you as a good story, and some which were, oh my God, horrible. This is in close quarters. Nobody's going to get offended.
No, I think you've put me on the spot, because I'm sorry, I do have to confess that I haven't really watched too many films at all, and so now I'm a little embarrassed.
Is there one that you would like to see getting made in India, which you've probably seen in Hollywood?
I think for me, really, what's more interesting, I want to pick up on what Ramesh said, that for me, it's more the human story. So, for example, I think Dunkirk was a really interesting film because they didn't really show war as much as they showed the effects of the war. Yeah. And I don't see that kind of film being made. And I think that, and I'm sure Ramesh has something to say about that.
Absolutely.
I think that we tend to, and please excuse me, those of you who are in the armed forces, those of you who are related to the armed forces, I don't mean to malign any of the things that you do, because I think if it weren't for you, we wouldn't feel safe at all in this country with what's happening in the world. But I think that their stories need to be told from a different perspective. Yeah. And it shouldn't just be a big nationalistic backdrop against which you tell it. I think that the common man or woman, for that matter, would love to hear the kind of stories that the panel before us shared. those stories need to
Yeah.
be made.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in that way, make it relatable to a younger generation
Yeah.
that is so absorbed with digital media that maybe a story like that would actually get them involved
Mhm.
with their history.
Yeah. So, Ramesh.
Can I answer the question
Okay.
quickly?
Yes.
Not in depth.
Yes.
Okay. So as far as a human story goes, let me assure you and everybody, I would request you to revisit the Devanand classic Hum Dono, 1961. Okay. I think it's one of the finest human stories because you have three distinct parts to the film: the pre-war segment, the war segment, and the post-war segment. Before war, he's a very happy-go-lucky guy, and he's romancing this girl, and then the father gives a challenge: तुम अपने लिए एक पैसे भी कमा नहीं सकते हो, तुम क्या कर सकते हो? Now, for everyone, this is what I have written. This is Indian war movie cliche number 1, which means that some character, the heroine or the heroine's father or somebody else, will challenge him. You are useless chap. So he's a useless chap. I'll join the army and I'll show them, And there are actual dialogues. मैं तुम्हें दिखा दूंगा, मैं मर्द बन के दिखा दूंगा, and so on and so forth. So coming back to Hum Dono, it's also interesting that it is set in the Second World War. The war segment is covered very well. The advisor was one Colonel Montgomery Key. So the battle scenes are well constructed. There's nothing unbelievable about it. The post-war segment, when Anand, who was Captain Anand, now comes back as Major Anand and is mistaken for the missing Major Verma because he shaved out his mustache. So that is where some of the human element of the, what happens to a family comes through in a very major way. It's melodramatic. I don't deny that. It is melodramatic. A lot of melodramas, screaming, crying, and so on. But yes, I mean, unless you show that, you cannot probably empathize with the characters and what the pain of family whose the man of the family has gone missing. And there is no closure for them. So because of that, the pain that they always feel is, and then it comes out with all this big relief when he comes back. And who has come back is Major Anand, not Major Verma. And Major Anand has been changed by the war. Unconsciously, he tells, Verma's wife Nanda is in front of him, and he's thinking of his girlfriend Meeta, and his Meeta, तुम्हें पता नहीं मैंने क्या क्या देखा है, किसी की आंखें, किसी के कान, किसी के पैर, सब जमीन पे बिखरे हुए, खून हर तरफ, blah blah blah. So this is not the same Captain Anand who joined the army. I want to be a man kind of thing. This man has come back changed.
I'm going to ask Susan now.
Sure.
Susan, what was your idea of, if you've seen the films, you've worked in a war film series, what is your idea of a well-made or a crappy Indian film made on wars?
He already said that, no? I always pronounce the name wrong. Sher Shah. I practiced that, and
you've liked
I adored the movie.
Okay.
I seriously thought this is a very well done, gripping experience to see, and I'm only realizing how well it is done because my new partner is army brat, as everybody keeps on saying. So he has taught me a lot of things, told me a lot of stories. He has an extensive knowledge on topics like this, so I could discuss the movie with him. I saw it as an actor, and I found it gripping, very well done, very well paced, and he told me the rest is also good. So
so it's authentic, and
I
watched
think
something.
What I feel is like well made. This movie pulled me in, even though I don't have any knowledge about the Indian Army at that time. I didn't know anything about it. I found it very well made, amazing music as well. So for me as an audience, it clicked, and for you as an expert, it also clicked. So that's a successful movie, I would say.
Outstanding.
What I don't like is these loud ones. There are a couple of projects coming up that I don't want to say the names, where it is all like boom, bang, and blowing things up, and that gives me Sunny Deol flashback vibes, when he's just like,
or border
keeps on running through the wreckage of a plane and another plane, and then he shoots there and shoots there, and everybody dies except him. So
I always
I
tell,
love.
just to answer that
Yeah.
question, I always tell my friends, and amongst my friends, I'm very notorious for this comment, is that the Indian Army and the Indian Air Force did not win the Battle of Longewala. Sunny Deol
Sunny
did.
Deol did. But actually, for all of us lay people, Sunny
And-
Deol did.
Yeah. So it's like, like they're all like, "No, how can you, as an Indian, how can you say that? Arey yaar, Longewala was a crucial battle. I don't deny that.
But how did we come to know of it?
But itna herogiri kyun?
क्योंकि वक्त
Yeah,
था
because
heroes
he's Sunny
का.
Deol. Again, back to square one,
Yeah, that's the whole
Possibly.
problem. If you
2.5
are,
kilo का हाथ.
that's the thing. Now you have a script, and then when you come with a script to a producer, hero kaun hai? Yeah, the first question is, who will be the hero in this? If you don't have a hero, I will not produce your movie. So it has to be a hero. If a hero is in the project, he walks in as a hero. So the whole story might be better, but it has to concentrate on him because he wants a certain screen time.
This is a brilliant point. I have one more on this. I just want to expand. There is this film called Khule Asma Ki Or. Now, the actors, there are three unknown stage actors. It's a very interesting tough film. It's about 3 Indian Air Force officers breaking out of Lahore from a POW camp in August 1972. And they went to they were caught at the Afghan border. Okay. But it's a very, very interesting film. After I saw the film, I read the background of the book. There's a book by squadron leader Jaffa, who is one of the characters in the film. Death is not painful. And the escape, how they plan the escape, it's all detailed. But the producer director, he could not release it. कौन है ये 3 लोग कौन है? I mean, who are these characters?
That's the story of the film
So
industry.
now what has happened is it's available on YouTube and garnered good reviews and things like that.
Wonderful. So
And it is covered in the book.
yeah, the book is very well done. So I will quickly just quote Dr. Daisaku Ikeda, who's also a peace philosopher and a very well-known author. Songs are thunderbolts of courage that vanquish the dark night, fanfares of hope that make the magnificent morning sun rise in our hearts. How important, and this is something that I think all of us will have our opinion on. How important was the music in LOC? I'm taking out the bigger ones: LOC, Border, Sher Shah. These are the recent big army movies. Uri, Hakikat. So I wanted to know from that era, how important, Avantika, I'll ask you first, how important has music been for these films?
So, one forgets that in production, I think things like costume, music, they are characters of their own. And let's look at the silent era, right? When people didn't speak, what was it that attracted us to films? Sorry, I should know this, right? Like you. What was it that attracted us to these films?
Yeah.
And it was the mood that is created. So you may be the most cynical person watching something, but suddenly when you hear a soundtrack, like if one were to suddenly sing a soundtrack, suddenly you go, oh my God, that's the
It takes
film.
you back,
And why?
yeah.
So it evokes a memory. It evokes a reference point. It evokes a sensibility. It evokes an emotion. And I think that's the most important thing. And if one doesn't pay attention and give it the respect that it deserves, I think you've done a great disservice to your film. So you could have done the most research in the world. You could have the most authentic costume.
Yeah.
And you could have the most phenomenal actors. But if you have, and pardon me if I say, if you have filmy music, it's not going to do anything to enhance your film.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is one of those yes and no kind of situations. I'm a big
Yes or
music
no?
buff
Will do.
also. So let's look at the yes part. I think the ending of Hakikat, when, Kar Chale Hum Fida, Jano Tan Sathiyo, Ab Tumhare Hawale Watan Sathiyo plays in the background. I mean, I'm saying it, I'm getting goosebumps.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the most effective conclusions to a film through song.
Yes.
Okay. And there are many such situations, but I don't remember any LOC song. I don't remember any Paltan song. I definitely don't remember Sher Shah song because it did not enter my, shall we say, consciousness. Perhaps if I listen to them 4-5 times or something, probably I'd be able to I'll be able to sing them out also. But Kar Chale Hum Fida Jano Tan Sathiyo, then okay, that is a very kind of patriotic song. But there are romantic songs in these kind of films also. Hakikat, according to me, is probably the best war film ever. And it is also the best ever musical
Music track.
soundtrack ever.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Susan, thank you so much for that, Ramesh. What do you think?
No, music is the first thing that you understand before you learn the language. So when I went to movies here in the beginning in 2004 or 5, 6, and no subtitles in cinemas and my little tuta futa Hindi. So I was like, I relied on music.
Yeah.
It was telling me a story on its own. So I think music is a very integral part. And don't you think it has something to do with age as well? What music you relate to? Because I feel like we all go through phases where we have music that hits us more because you're younger.
I agree with you. I used to listen to radio in the 60s, 70s and 80s, even a little bit in the 80s. So that music, and it was audio. There was no MTV or anything like that. So the audio part, you listen once, you listen twice, it hits you straight here.
Yeah, and that's the job.
I agree with you that, music plays a big part, but music as a cigarette break, it just comes as when something intense is going on. Music suddenly comes from somewhere and what is going on. I
have a problem with the mixing these days. I feel a lot of time the music is too loud.
Absolutely.
To
totally.
underline a scene that is already strong in itself, and then it actually has the opposite effect and just poof.
Let me just give the latest example of this film, which is I saw in the theater actually, Sky Force. I saw it in the theater. So every time Akshay Kumar comes on the screen, there is this, there is a huge, heavy metal guitar chord which comes on. I said, okay, man, I know it's Akshay Kumar. I know he is going to defeat Pakistan single-handed. I know he is going to attack Sargodha single-handed. I know he is going to do all that. But do you have to introduce him every time with this guitar chord? So stuff like that,
But unfortunately, I think
but
that's
that
what
continues.
sells movies,
That's right.
Sadly, the subtlety doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So
but incidentally, when I saw Skyforce, I was in the last row, and just 2 rows were filled. That's all. And I saw it on the first day for show. So I think it says a lot that the audience is also now mature. Fighter I saw in the theater. Again, just 2 rows were filled. And again, it was a disaster of a film.
Yes.
But to be fair to Skyforce, it is well made, but centered around quotes unquote hero.
No, I mean the music that is actually helping a scene
that
is needed.
You
will not even realize there's music. If there is a music set in such a way that you don't even hear that music, but it touches you, that's the right kind of music.
Yeah. Maybe just we'll quickly wrap this up, and I want to wrap this up with a war of a different kind, since this is something that I'd like to bring Avantika into this. You play one of the protagonists in the Vagina monologues.
Yeah, there are 5 of us actually.
Yeah, there are 5 of you.
Yeah.
And I had to close our session with that, because it has been something that is still like a hushed up conversation. It is still a play for which if you want to tell your parents I'm going for Vagina monologues, it's still very strangely spoken about, because there will be still eyes looking at you. It's a war of a different kind, but quickly, could you tell us how it was to prepare for that role? Because it's incredibly wonderful.
Yeah. So thank you so much for asking that question, because sometimes we tend to look externally about what's affecting us, but we don't tend to look internally, especially for us women. And today, unfortunately, even globally, there is a huge war against women.
Yes.
And so when Eve Ensler wrote these 12 monologues, it was on a part of the body that even Western women did not speak about. And she found that very fascinating. And since then, it has sort of become a global phenomenon.
Yes.
And when Mahabanu, actually, it was really interesting. So Dolly Thakur and I were going to do a play with Jason DeCuna and a bunch of other people. And I heard her talking about this thing called the Vagina Monologues. I had seen Eve Ensler doing it in New York, and I was blown. And I said, if ever I return to India, this is my 20-something-year-old telling myself, if ever I return to India, this is the play I will bring. Just, the innocence of ignorance, I suppose, or the
Oh,
ignorance
lovely.
of innocence. And many years later, so when I heard this, I said, "Oh gosh, Dolly, are you doing a play called The Vagina Monologues?" And she said, "Yes." I said, "Great, I'll produce it." And she said, "Do you know anything about production?" I said, "No."
No. Anything to do with
and
it.
So it's that exuberance of, and I said, "Well, okay, then I'll direct it." And she said, "Do you know anything about directing?" I said, "Absolutely not." And so I said, "Well, okay, then maybe I can act in it." She said, "Well, you've done 2 plays so far. Do you think
So
you
you
can
do
act
know
in
something
it?"
about acting.
I
then.
can, but she said, "I tell you what, come and see Mahabanu when we're rehearsing tomorrow, Sunday morning, 9 o'clock." Okay, Sunday morning, 9 o'clock. I walk down to Dolly's house. Mahabanu is sitting there. I walk in. She says, "You cannot direct it. I'm directing. You cannot produce it. I'm producing. But maybe you can act." And I said, "Well, okay, fine. I'll be a stagehand. I'll be backstage." And so she gives me the script. And she said, "Open a page and read the dialogue. Read one of the monologues." And I did. And she said, "Okay, read another one." And literally, that's how it happened. And the only theater that would allow us to perform in was the Prithvi.
Oh my God.
You saw me. Thank you. Because Sanjana at that time was brave enough to buck tradition. And
then that
Sanjana
opened,
and the Kapoor family, who I've known since I was a little child, were glorious.
Yeah.
But we were told, please pack a bag on opening night because you don't know if you're going to see your family again. Right? And so here we were, for those of you, any of you who perform or even in film, that first shot, that first scene, there are huge nerves going in.
Yeah.
Opening night. So here's opening night. I'm thinking, is the theater going to be burned down? Will the Shiv Sena, at that time, it was the Shiv Sena,
Yes,
funny,
yes.
ironic, right? Know that I played Indira, Gandhi and Bala Sahib. Will the Shiv Sena come and burn us down? Will
the
I have
play
to go
be
into
stopped
hiding,
halfway?
so on and so forth. But surprise, surprise. And this I have to really commend the press. They were phenomenally sensitive in their reportage. And we told them, if you have nothing nice to say,
Don't say it.
and if you present it as something lascivious and sexual, we will bar you from ever talking to us or ever coming to any performance. And they were extraordinary. They were so sensitive. And literally, Prithvi said, "Okay, we'll give you 3-4 shows." Then suddenly 3-4 shows became 5 shows. Then ultimately by our 10th show, this is what I heard, don't quote me, tickets were selling in black. I'm just joking. But
Prithvi can only accommodate so many. But then, of course, you traveled the world with it.
Sorry, Kunal, I promise you nothing like that happened. But yeah, and I think what happened is it opened the floodgates.
Yeah.
And suddenly there was a platform, not so much as an interactive dialogue. Yeah. And by the way, thank you for doing this festival. It's extraordinary, I think, what you've been able to accomplish. And the theme is so powerful, and listening to your stories, Prabal. And now I have to get your book. I don't.
You have to. You have to. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, it's so important to allow people, and I find it globally now, to allow people to speak and to speak their mind and to speak their truth, as long as it doesn't hurt anybody else. We're so offended so easily today.
Yes.
But,
so thank you so much for that, Avantika.
Yeah.
There was, I'll wrap up with this one interaction I had with JP Datta as Lieutenant General Joshi was sharing. Sorry, I went blank for a second. That JP Datta was always extremely emotional about the films he made. And I remember at one such screening where not so well-mannered journalist stood up and said, "Aapki film bahut lambi hai, LOC. Kaun dekhega?" And it actually riled him up, and he said, "अगर आपके देश पे मरने वालों की कहानियाँ आपके लिए कहानियाँ नहीं हैं और आप नहीं देखने आएंगे, तो मुझे अफसोस है उस देश पे, ऐसे यूथ पे, ऐसे जर्नलिस्ट पे, क्योंकि अगर ये 6 घंटे की भी होगी पिक्चर तो आप लोग को देखनी चाहिए, क्योंकि ये आपके बारे में है और आप जिंदा इनकी वजह से हैं." So good, bad or ugly, the films are who we are. We live with them. We grow up on them. Bad music, good music, we have the right to ban it or not. But let's just embrace them because they tell a little story.